you, Amit. I would like to invite our respondent, Dr. Harel Chorev. Dr. Chorev is head of the Doron Halper Middle East Network Analysis Desk at the Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern and African Studies at Aviv University.
Thank you. All right. First, let me say that I will respond in English, but feel free to ask your question later on in Hebrew, and everybody just make yourself comfortable, as we say. I will try to make it as short as possible. Thank you, Mariam and Yamit. I think it was lovely. Two very promising subjects for PhD. Beautiful presentations as well, by the way, on two places that I love very much, both my birth town Haifa and Rawabi, which I visited as the guest of the Palestinian Authority and Bashar al-Masri himself a few years ago, and I was just fascinated. I don't know how much you could get it from the clip that Mariam played, but really it is a beautiful place. And what strikes me the most was the normality of this place. Not just that it was beautiful, but the normality. They have a beautiful presentation room right under that huge flag that you saw there. I guess you got that. There's a huge Palestinian flag there, and a visitor center there. And you can just go through between the models, which are really top-notch. You can see families looking at you. Of course, it's all mock-up, it's videos, but it's beautiful, really high-end, and I liked it because it was normality, which I really wish the Palestinian would all my heart. I think it's a little bit presumptuous to call it a city, as you saw. It is kind of a horseshoe quarter still, but in the future, why not? What I wanted to tell you with Rawabi. First of all, I fully agree with Mariam that it is a fascinating case to explore because of that meeting between Israeli Arabs and Palestinians, and in the way it affects all those avenues that Mariam mentioned. I am naturally, because language or linguistic studies is not really my turf, I'm a historian, but the question of identities, both sub-national identities, which you cleverly mentioned, of course. The issue of extended family is, I cannot overemphasize how crucial it is, and how such a move of, let's say, a family from Hebron, for example, to that new area, to that new city, might affect so many circles of identity, of economic networks, of other kinds of influences that are really far-reaching, and I think it's really a great issue to reveal and study. I will just, if I were you, I would use the case of Nablus, for example. That would be probably the closest to your issue, because as you mentioned, this is the first Palestinian planned city. However, Nablus was also once a kasbah, an old city, an old typical Arab city between two mountains, concentrated there for centuries. But in the second half of the 20th century, it started to spread to the hills, which changed dearly and deeply the social networks of the city. And let's say families like El-Masri, which I know very well, the same family of Bashar, by the way, moved to all kinds of neighborhoods, of Idea and others, and it broke, of course, the typical clustering of Arab extended families and had far-reaching effects. So I'm sure you'll have some very interesting insights about this issue. Yeah, the most crucial thing that I see in your presentation is the question of identity, and you address that both in questions of individual and collectivism, transition, right? And the third one, how did you define it? Transition and hybridity, right? Yeah, right. I guess you mean national, in terms of national, okay. So in that sense, I would advise you, methodologically, and let me emphasize my comment is not political in any way, because I believe everyone can identify himself as they wish, okay? But methodologically wise, I would advise you not to assume the identity of your informants, and first of all, to start with sort of a scale where you are interviewing them. Ask them what about their identity? How do they feel? Let me give you just few details which my very able assistant Jonathan collected for me, just to give you an idea of how complex it is and how hard it is for us to assume the identity which Mariam wants to deal with, and she's right about it, of course, to address this aspect. For example, what you see here is all kinds of surveys that were carried out in recent years, since 2010 till 2022, of course. The last one that we met was one of Dr. Mohammed Halaile from Haifa. And what we did in the bottom line, I don't know how, can you see that, the bottom line? Yes. All right. It's sort of a summary or an average of identities according to the respondents. How did they saw themselves? So you have all kinds of Arab identity, Palestinian identity, 14.62%, religion, namely I'm Druze, I'm Muslim, I'm Christian. That is also can be a primal identity, okay? And Israelis, okay? If you summarize it, it's almost 20%. Arabs that see themselves as Israelis, and others on the most extreme right column. So if I were you, I would take any category that you would like to check and ask them, where do you fit yourself? And then to come back 2 years later and to ask the same questions. And I think you have those 2 years, right? It's a PhD basically. And then to see what has changed. I think it will give you a very good empiric idea regarding the effect of Rawabi on their identity. And I'm sure you'll have such an impact. And it will be very strong in empirical terms to prove your case. By the way, dialects. Anyone who knows the Palestinians will tell you that if you're really an expert on dialects, you would tell the difference between a Hebronite who is from one of the neighborhoods in the east, or one of the neighborhoods in the west, or one of the neighborhoods in the south, or even a Hebronite from Jerusalem. Okay, dialects are extremely crucial. It's not like, here in Israel. So it's really, really crucial, and I think Mariam is right about studying those aspects as well. So thank you for that. Now Yamit, thank you for a beautiful presentation, really full with beautiful pictures of Haifa, Sachat el-Khanatir, namely Sachat el-Khanatir, for those of you who don't know Arabic, I think it was quite clear. Sachad, it's a square. Chanatir, it's caravans. And you probably saw that in the pictures. Caravans that made their way, as Yamit said, to Beirut, to Damascus, and other places. I like the idea of using preservation and conservation as a method of creating spheres of hope and understanding. I think it's a very good idea. Theoretically, if it's done right in a way which is respectful and sensitive, I think it's respective to the past and its creators in the past, not necessarily the people who are present today. However, methodologically, again, I think we need to take into account that, which in a high stake, you will also find, or anyone who will take that path, antagonism as well. Will face antagonism as well, because when you do something like that, when you revive the past, when you, for example, re-erect a building in its original form, Palestinian, Ottoman, whatever, you know, it reminds people, gives a vivid idea of what was here. Now, not necessarily the fact that, I don't know, Jews are living in that house today will create that sphere that you were hoping to create. So I think your study can really offer and contribute the idea, the theoretical, at least, idea of how to do it right, how to do it in a sensitive way, which will not create antagonism and sensitivity in a way that at the end of the day will give you the exact opposite. And we have, of course, many examples around the country, ranging from Katamon and Tarbiyeh, Jerusalem, to, of course, Jaffa, Ajami, other places that I think emphasize this point. Okay, I think that's enough for me. How do you?
You're welcome to take a seat, and we'll open the floor for questions.
Yeah, we'll open the floor for.
Yeah, I have a question about the table that was actually just shown up there, and then the ramifications that had.
Do you want me to put it again?
Yeah, why not? Thank you. It's just a huge variation, which made me think there's also.
Let's be focused on there just a second, so we can see what kind of variation.
Right. So in 2022, you have 42% of people choosing Arab, and there's no one.
42 here.
Yeah.
Of Halayde?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And zero, I guess, it's not an option for the Israeli.
Well, it's just that the question was different.
Yeah.
Jonathan can actually explain that the question was slightly different, and I heard him. I went to see him, and basically his answer was that these 17% see themselves as Israelis. But the question was a little bit complex, and we wanted to keep it really, really authentic and precise, so we didn't put it in the Israeli column, but you may assume that it's the same.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, I guess, when doing the field research, is it who's interviewing or the context in which it's done changes the. So a difficult question on your task of going to Rawabi and doing these in-person interviews is thinking when you're looking at surveys like this, what were some of the biases of the surveys that meant you can have differences between 2020 and 2022 threefold, 15% and 42, and it's probably not change over time. Probably not 2 years, such a drastic change in identifying there.
I guess if I would have to summarize it, I will tell you that the strongest identity, and I met it, by the way, personally as well. I used to volunteer here at the university to to teach Arab students of high school. And we did an experiment of, identify yourself. And by far, the Arab identity was the strongest. Now, all kinds of variations of it, by the way, Israeli Arab, Palestinian Arab, just Arab, particularly just Arab. What you see here, take for example the Adenauer survey. They're talking about 14% see themselves as Arabs, but if you go to this column, you see they call themselves Arab Israeli, 33.5%. So if you sum it up, you will get something like 40-something%, which resemble, the 42% of Dr. Halayla. So as you said, it really depends on how you pose the question, of course. They're not so. When you take, for example, the Palestinian identity, 22% here, Halayla 17%. There, it's not that far, okay? And in between, you see 13%, 14% again, 14% again, 7% here by Karin Fuchs, is a very famous survey scientist in Israel. I think it's a little bit low, if you'll ask me. I don't know. I think something there was damaged, but maybe we should look for it here. For Arab Israeli, probably some of them identify themselves as Palestinian Israeli, as Mayam used that term as well, Palestinian Israeli, like you would say American, Palestinian American, or Israeli American, which is natural. So it is what it is.
Yes, and there's something